Hello my friends, it's your brother Hampton. I'm a business owner and online content creator, and I want to talk about how to sell things without feeling like you are selling something. How you can make money doing what you do if you're not comfortable asking people for money. And I feel like this is a lot of people who get into something, honestly, for the right reasons. Someone who is a master of their craft or mastering their craft and may not be the most business savvy or not quite sure how to monetize that. Rest assured that that's usually who we want to work with. When I'm buying shoes, I want to buy from someone who ideally loves making shoes, is like a shoe savant, a shoe genius, right? It's like, this is like, the soles can be like this thing, it's the golden ratio. I don't even know, right? And they think about that and they're like, do you want to buy this? And I'm like, yeah, how much is it? And like, $5, right? So we want to work with someone who's passionate about their craft. So rest assured that if that's you, you have the foundation. And I want to talk about that, how it's very possible to do this, how you can enter things and start making a living doing what you love and doing what you're good at and support other people who are supporting you in this journey, your team, without necessarily feeling like you're selling out or really feel like you're selling anything at all. Or honestly, you could potentially do it without even making an offer for someone to ask someone for money. So how you can make money without asking for money. Now, whether or not that's real, whether or not you should feel bad, that's kind of a separate discussion. But I want to start with 3 simple concepts that separately are very important, but together can be tied together to understand how you can make money without asking for money necessarily. And I want to give an example before I get too much into it, because at the end I will offer a twist on all of that kind of ties it together as well. But I feel like I use a lot of different examples because I talk to a lot of different types of people. And there's this girl I know whose family makes music, I think Christian music, and they tour around the state. They're in the United States, and she just seems like someone who really is passionate about doing what she does, and she wants to make a living doing it. And I think they do make a living doing it, but they want to scale their CD sales, they want to scale other parts, and even words like that, words like scale, marketing, revenue, optimization, things like that, they don't always rub people the right way. So if you're hearing that and you're like, man, I don't want to talk about that, I understand that. I understand that feeling, so hopefully this video can help. The first thing I think is important to understand is the idea of scale itself. So when we say scale, it's a common term in business. But what I mean here is the concept of, let's say, this tea. Okay, let's say of the tea particles that are floating in it. This is, you can't troll for using this. Okay, the tea bag is 20% of the cup and the rest of it is tea, right? So if this is however many ounces, let's say 8 ounces. So if we make it 80 ounces, then that scale should still be the same, right? So this is pretty simple. You're like, man, oh, I know this, right? Yeah, so it's like, it's still 20%. Regardless of how big we make this, it's to scale. So like this tea bag will grow, the tea will grow as we make it bigger and smaller. So that's an important concept to understand. The second concept is an experience, a feeling that you might be able to relate to, because sometimes you have bought things, most likely, because you saw a sign for it, because someone offered it to you. Like you saw a sign as you're going through the mall, and it's like, oh, 20% off this shoe. You're like, oh, I like that shoe. I don't know why shoes are on my mind. I'm actually not wearing shoes right now. But you go and you're like, okay, I'll buy that. And someone's like, oh yeah, this is great for runners, it's good for jumping. The sole is like memory foam or something and fits your feet really well and looks like you have a wider toe box, so this will fit you. And like, cool, and you buy it because someone sold it to you. And then there are things that you seek out by yourself. Sometimes you're just like, I want a band t-shirt. Like I really like this band, so I'm gonna go online. So you're like, man, no, it's not on their website. Like their merch is sold out. I'm gonna go on eBay and Amazon. So you basically hunt your way. Something that is kind of like the opposite. Someone that nobody sold you, but you still want it. So that's an important concept. Sometimes people are selling you things and they're pushing, so to speak. And sometimes you are pulling because you're actively searching for something through some independent thought, not from a salesman. Like let's say, you're like, man, I really need more cups. And you didn't get the idea from a cup salesman. Maybe you saw the idea from a friend. He's like, man, those are really nice cups. I want those ceramic cups with Hello Kitty on them. So I really want those, right? And no one sold you that. You're just like, man, those look really nice. Now you're seeking them out. So now you're actively trying to buy. So that's an important concept. And the third one is you are probably more likely to buy from someone that you trust. And I told myself that I would start a timer as I'm doing this video so it wouldn't go on too long. And I forgot to do it, but it's okay. We're 5 seconds in, we'll start counting from there. When you trust someone. You probably are more likely to buy something, all else equal, from a friend, a good friend, than from someone who is a very good salesman, even. So let's say you're looking for the best brand of tea that you go into a store for, right? So a tea salesman can be like, oh yeah, these teas are organic. They're farmed with sustainably grown in like the certain altitude that really brings out the aroma of it, and that's wonderful. That's great. But someone that you trust, someone that you know, someone that you've liked for decades, for years, is like, no, actually get this one. Get the lemongrass one. I like it. I had a cold the other day, and it made me feel better. And you're like, okay, I'll get that one, right? So like one, you can sell, you can do the sell like with all the details and all the offers and all the things that should work. But then sometimes you just connect with someone. You're like, man, this person knows me and I trust them and I've put my trust in them before and been rewarded for it. And they trust me, so I have a good rapport with them. So the more I know them and the more I trust them and the more we've given to each other, not necessarily not necessarily, oh, they've given me $100, therefore I trust them. But there's been just a lot of, not even money, but just like goodwill exchange back and forth, someone that you've connected to, you're more likely to trust them, especially when they sell you something, and especially if they say that, especially if they don't necessarily stand to benefit from it. But even if so like you probably have a friend who started a small business, especially in this day and age, either online or in person. Like maybe a friend who owns a coffee shop, right? I have a friend who owns a coffee shop. I go there sometimes. A friend who owns this little store, I go there sometimes. Even when I know there are better prices online or somewhere else, I go there because I feel like I can trust them. And I know they do benefit from me shopping there, but I want to benefit them. So those three concepts: scale, the idea that sometimes you're looking and sometimes people are pushing things on you, and the idea that the more we trust someone, the more we've shown someone, and the more we've shared with someone and shown that we're authentic, the more they can trust us, and the easier it is for them to sway the things we do. These are very important concepts for what I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about is essentially the difference between marketing and sales. Now, you may have heard this depending on how much online entrepreneurship business stuff you've done. I'm going to take a sip of tea. How much you've researched in that space. But there's different definitions depending on who you ask. But one of the best ways to visualize it for me, like what's the difference between marketing and sales? One of the favorite ways that I like to visualize it, I forget who first said it, is that let's say business is like a golf game. Marketing is getting the golf ball as close to the hole as possible, and sales is knocking it in with a slight change. It's like where marketing can actually drop the ball in the hole itself. That's the hole in one, right? So marketing, get everything as close as possible, making it as easy as possible, and sales is driving it in. You can think of it like that. And you can also think of it as marketing is people being pulled to something, and sales is trying to push something on someone else. Again, sales isn't necessarily, I think it's the first time I said it this way. Sales isn't necessarily bad. You can sell someone on something that's really good for them. So like even if we want to take money outside of it. So whenever someone's feeling a little bit confused by business, I just try to use non-money examples. Let's say there's a cause, an environmental cause that you really like, or maybe you are part of a certain religion and you really, not trying to push on people, but you're talking with a friend who's interested. You're like, man, this is why I think this church might like it. You're like, they might say, hey, I'm interested in joining a church or a group or like maybe a community where I belong to. And you're like, yeah, I know you're open-minded to this, and I know you're new to this denomination or this religion, but maybe you would like to check it out, right? So whatever you consider to be a very good cause, you can sell someone on. So selling isn't necessarily bad, but I'm just saying some people, I understand, don't necessarily feel the best about selling. And this is how we can use marketing to our advantage. And even marketing, some people don't really like that term, but how we can sell without selling, how we can make a living doing what we love and what we're good at without feeling like we are selling out or making it about money. The concepts of scale, push-pull, and trust can combine into how we do online content. This is how a lot of online businesses operate, because I want to share that I also didn't feel like I wanted to sell anything. Actually, even before I did Hybrid Calisthenics, if you're familiar with that channel, I was making websites for people. I wanted to do like $800 a website, which is pretty cheap for the stuff I was building. And what I found was like, if I tried to customize it and add all these things, people didn't really care. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I just use like Squarespace or WordPress to make you a website? And they're like, what's Squarespace and WordPress? I'm like, do you care if I make it easier, but it takes me less time and costs you less? And they're like, no, please. Right? So I would start doing these websites for them, and I'd be like, here's the login, here it is. It would take me like a couple hours, and I would charge $800, right? And like people like that price. But I noticed that my first customers were usually friends, and it's usually friends who are starting a business. So like like money's still a little bit tight for them. They're just like, man, or like they're trying to really optimize it, even if they have a lot of money. They're trying to optimize and get the best bang for their buck. So it's like $800. I'm like, yeah. And they're telling me about how excited they are. Like, I'm gonna start this drink shop. It's gonna be great. It's gonna have like a gym to the side. I have a friend who's a gym owner. I'm gonna sell merch. People are gonna like it. I'm gonna use like healthy ingredients. Like, that stuff sounds great. And he's like, can you make me a website? I'm like, yeah, I can. And he's like, oh, how much is it? I said, well, it's $800, but and this is like where I started to think there was something wrong with me. But later on, I know a lot of people relate. There wasn't actually, and I want to talk about it in a bit. Like, it's $800, but tell you what, why don't I just show you how to do it? Because I know I can do it in a couple of hours. Why don't I just show you how to do it for free? And like, yeah, please. I'm like, yeah, cool. We'll meet in a couple days, And I mean, you could argue this wasn't very smart of me because I wasn't making a whole lot of money at the time, but I wanted to help, right? So that was the thing. And I was sat down and I was like, well, here, you open this, you make an account, you put in your card, and they're like, oh, you have to put in your card. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not making money. This is the website, WordPress or Squarespace making it. Okay, cool. And they would like click and drag. I'm like, no, don't do that. You're making it too big. No, it's the wrong color. And I wasn't trying to make it difficult. Like, this is normal stuff. Like, this is the normal part of the process. And like 30 minutes in, usually not even an hour, like sometimes 20, 30 minutes, they're like, yeah, Hampton, why don't I just give you $800 to do this? I'm like, are you sure? Because we'll be done in like an hour and a half. They're like, and then I don't want to deal with it. So I'm like, interesting. So cool. So I can tell everyone my exact process and offer to have them have it for free. And they're just like, no, it's all right. I think let's pay you for it. And that's one of the important lessons that I learned from experience is that, like, I really do feel better that way. When I know that I've offered this, like, no, I'll show you how to do it for free. But if you want, you can buy it. So that's an interesting thing when people choose that. And I feel like I never thought I was fooling anyone. But now I'm like, well, now they're very clear about the choices they have. And they still chose this. So I feel great. Yeah, please, I'll go ahead and do this website, for however much. It wasn't always $800. Sometimes it fluctuates. Sometimes it was less. Sometimes it was more, depending on the complexity of it. And of course, there's like hosting costs and domain costs, which isn't a whole lot in comparison to that. And this is similar to what we're doing through content, but not just content. So if you're watching this and you're not someone who really wants to do social media at all, you don't want to spend a lot of time online, there's still like I guess an old school way to do it, which I'll talk about after this, but a lot of people are doing content, so I'll talk about that first. I want to use this example. We'll kind of go in reverse order from the skills and the concept I talked about. So this is a merch shirt. Traveling Merchant Chronicles is a webtoon that's available on the Webtoon and Tapas apps, and I'll make a website for it separately that I'm making with a friend, an artist friend of mine. It's been a really enjoyable project this year. And this is a merch shirt for it, or I call it a merch shirt, but it's like something I just regularly wear. And sometimes you'll see me wear shirts that say hybrid calisthenics. Sometimes like there's like different slogans, have a beautiful day, things like that. I can't remember the last time I linked a merch shirt to someone and say, hey, please buy this. I didn't really do like merch drops. I didn't really do that. Some people do, and that's fine. But this is a great way to show that, I think. Yeah, we still sell a decent amount of merch, right? So it's not a tremendous amount, but we sell a decent amount of merch. And if I were to scale that, people could live off that. Well, it fluctuates based on how well the company's doing at the time. So just to use something like that as an example, let's say someone's watched a few of my videos. They start with one, like, oh, that's a pretty cool short. And they go into some of the longer form videos and they find the Coffee with Hampton podcast. And they're like, you know what? I like Hampton. He's helped me with a couple of push-ups. That's pretty cool. He doesn't have to be we don't have to be best friends necessarily, although that might happen. But they like my stuff, and they're like, huh. So I wonder if there's a shirt. I see that him wearing that shirt. Maybe I can find it. So here we've already fulfilled two of the things. So through trying to do good and trying to help people and trying to give, whenever I do a video, it usually takes longer than I expect because I usually try to give everything I can about the subject. I'll try to make it as good as possible. I'm not saying they're amazing. I'm saying I try to make it as good as possible. As a result, some people have liked that. Some people have enjoyed that. Let's say it's like 0.1% of people actually go, it probably less than that, 0.1% of people who watch the videos actually go and seek out some of the merch. Okay, and let's say that adds up to, I know I mentioned different ideas, but it really fluctuates, but let's say that's a couple $100 USD a month. At least in the US, that's not enough to live on, really anywhere, unless you have a lot of roommates or you're living at home, but really not generally considered a living income. So you're like, wait a second, that doesn't work, this doesn't work. So you have to sell things, you have to mention it, because when you mention it, a lot more people will buy it. But that's why the third part, scale, comes in. So a lot of this stuff would be hard to do because we still imagine the world as if we were living in a tribe, pretty much, with like 15, 20 people, where you do have to kind of convince people on some things at least. But with the internet, we're exposed to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. You don't have to be a large channel. Even 1,000 people. If you saw a YouTube video with 1,000 views, you're like, okay, it's a fairly small YouTube video. But could you imagine giving a speech to 1,000 people? Right? It's crazy, right? So it's hard for us to visualize that, and that's really where the scale comes in. Some of this stuff wouldn't work. Right? You can't necessarily sell some things without selling without a massive scale. But let's say like we convert at like 0.02%. But suddenly when you go from like talking to 10 people or 100 people, and you start talking to 10,000, 100,000, a million, 10 million people, regular reviews, and you try to help them, all those things, all those boxes are ticked. They trust you, but you have to earn that trust, and you have to actually give them good things. You actually try to push, and you actually try to do good for them while still working on yourself. I don't want to be self-aggrandizing, but you really try your best trying to do good things and offer solutions to their problems and make them happier, etc. Then a portion of them, and this is if you don't want to sell things, they will seek things out for themselves. It doesn't have to be assured. I have a book, right? And eventually I might make a book on the Coffee with Hampton stuff. I might mention it occasionally. I won't necessarily sell to you, but like, oh yeah, if you're interested in more, I have a book called Mentally Fit, and it's about a lot of the concepts I talk about with Coffee with Hampton, and that'll be coming out in hopefully early next year. And that's a real thing. I'm working on that right now. Some people will seek that out and buy it without ever me really mentioning it. Right, so you see, that's the example here. And then with scale, with the magic of scale, that's when we can actually make a living doing that. Right, because prior to that, it might occasionally be like, okay, so if you didn't have the internet, and it's like, okay, occasionally a friend will ask, okay, I made like $10 today. That's pretty cool. I made like $30, a sale or two a week. With scale and those things combined, that's how we can sell things, because people will seek things out because they trust you, and doing that at scale is how this can happen, how you can make a living making money doing the things you know, the things you love, and hopefully the things you're good at. You kind of want a combination of those. However, the twist that I mentioned is quite important here, and that is the twist that a lot of people, including myself, when I went into this, I was always warned, well, Hampton, you're too nice, right? Like what my friends would tell me, and like very lovingly so. They're not trying to bring me down. They say, Hampton, you're too nice. You have to sell some stuff, right? Like for the first 2 years, even after I had like several million subscribers across social media and on YouTube and stuff, my friends and family would be like, oh, that's awesome. It's cool. So are you making any money from that yet? Right, are people paying money? Right, and I was always like, no, I'm building something, and they're like, okay. And I think a lot of them understood. They were very supportive, but a lot of them are just like, okay, so you haven't made any money yet, right? Because they don't think it's real until you make money. It's like, no, I want to give. I think they believed in me, but they were always kind of curious about that. Because early on, if you're following the content creation journey, and I haven't forgotten if you want to do it offline, basically, if you're doing the content creation journey, you usually get the eyeballs first, you usually get the attention first, and then you follow up with a product or service. And there was always the idea I was going to sell a coaching program, I was gonna sell like a calisthenics routine or something, like it'd be like 20, 30 bucks each, people buy it, I put it on TikTok, I probably could have made a substantial amount of money by now, especially if I had started back in 2020 or whenever a good time to do that was. But I didn't do that. I wanted to start giving first. And people said, well, Hampton, you're too nice, you have to do stuff. Because I remember doing the hybrid calisthenics routine, and I told my friends, like, I'm gonna do this, and say, how much are you gonna charge? And I thought about it for a while, because I was like, it could be really high, or it could be lower, so more people can afford it. And I thought, I think I'm gonna charge $0, right? And he was like, oh, like they started. I was like, no, I think I'm gonna charge $0 because it just felt right. I didn't know why, but I wanted to charge $0. It just felt right. And then there was a lot of things I later on built. There was this like kind of like a community social media-ish type app that I released that I paid a lot of money for that I also didn't want to charge for. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And people are like, oh, you're missing out on money. I'm like, it just doesn't feel right, So I always thought I had this in me, but that's shifted. That changes later on. Right, especially when I did the book, and I said, well, the book is basically just an online routine. I said, well, if you want a book, because people asked for that first. After I remade the routine, they were like, oh, can you please do a book version? I'm like, yeah, I can, and I'll sell that for like whatever a book costs, right? Just standard book costs. That did decently well. A lot of people wanted that. Thousands of people wanted that, and I was like, interesting, right? And nowadays, when I release something, I try to give a free version because I want to be that person I was back in the day doing websites. I'm like, no, listen. If you want a free version of this, here's all you have to do, right? And then like, you can go on the website and you can print out the stuff. You can write it down. You can screenshot it, and then that's basically the ebook, right? No one's stopping you from doing that. Please do that. Please do that. If you want the book, you can buy a book. If you want the ebook, you can buy the ebook. And we have an app. Vast majority of it is free, and we're trying to make better. I'm trying to make the free version better too. So I'm still working on this stuff. I still want to be that person, right? Who says, no, you can have this stuff, and I'll sell this if you want it, right? I still want to be that, and it's changed a little bit. It's changed how I feel about it, because now I'm a little bit more comfortable with selling because I'm using that method. So the twist for all of that is a lot of people don't feel comfortable selling yet. And it depends on the person. But a lot of people don't feel comfortable selling yet because they haven't given enough. I think that's how it was for me, right? So we don't feel right not taking. We're not taking. We're asking. We don't feel right asking until we've offered enough, until we've given enough. It's like, hey, here's all the stuff we can do for free. And I don't even always have an end game. So like you're probably watching this on Hybrid Creators. That's where I plan to upload it. And we have gone way past the amount of time that I thought this would be. But I hope the video can help. I really hope it can help. I want to give the idea of this channel. I'm definitely not the most successful content creator, but I have a decent amount of experience in it by now. I want to share my mistakes. And I knew when I was starting off, I would love to ask a content creator with like a couple million subscribers, hey, how do you do this? How do you make a living doing this? How do you sell this? How did you do this without people being angry? How did you do this? How did you build this? How did you find a schedule? How did you do all this? I had all this stuff. I'm making this basically for my past self, right? And I hope it can help you. That's the goal. Now, in the future, I don't even know. Like people have asked me for like a coaching call. I haven't taken one yet because first of all, I have a lot of stuff that I'm trying to do right now. And I appreciate that. But I kind of want to keep it non-monetized for at least a little bit, right? Because I just want to give. And it might never come to something. Now, I might one day write a book on like how to be a content creator in 2026. I might do a course. I might take coaching calls, things like that, which is an optional for people. But I always want to start with giving. I always want to start with giving and offering. And really all the things I mentioned, the course, the book, the coaching call even, all of that is stuff the information is going to be available for free. So like people who want to find it for free is here, kind of like the website. But if you want to organize it in a certain way, if you want me to explain to you like relative to your business, relative to your situation, I could do that. Just to be clear, I don't have one yet. I don't have it because I sometimes get emails and I always feel bad because when they offer so nicely. But sometimes you don't feel like you have given enough, and that's why you don't feel right asking. It's not a bug, right? Like a lot of people act like it is, but it's a feature. It's a feature. You don't feel right doing it because you're not quite sure the reason. And sometimes the reason is because you feel like you haven't offered enough. And you might not feel like your thing is good enough yet. And here's the thing, full support for you. Like, proud of you for trying to do this. This is great. I know it's hard. Your thing, if you're starting off, might not be that great yet. If this is your first time offering a service you've never done it before, you're probably not that good compared to how you'll be in 10 years if you keep doing it. You know, this is your first product you've made. It's probably not going to be as good as it is in even 1 year if you keep improving it. So just to be honest with yourself, the reason you don't feel right offering it is sometimes because it's not that good yet, right? Doesn't mean it's not worth money, right? Like you very well, like you're like, I want to give away for free. It could be worth $20, $30, $50, $100, depending on what it is, right? Those things are all true. But when we give more and we do more, if you're similar to me in that regard, you do feel more and you offer the thing structured in a way that is comfortable with your conscience, your moral compass, and your soul, then it feels a lot better. Then you're like, okay, I'm not really trying to ask money from anyone. I'm just offering this, right? And you don't even have to ask. So all those things I mentioned, sometimes you can say, hey, every once in a while, I'll say, hey, I had this thing out. Would be honored if you got it. You know, if you get it, I hope you love it, right? I spent a lot of time doing this. It's just a book. Please check it out. That's a sell, I guess. It's a soft sell. But there's also, most people don't even find it through that. Most people, they find it themselves, right? And that's how you can sell without selling. The old school thing. If you aren't an online person, the good news is this idea of scale has happened even before the internet. So there are concerts, there are rallies, there are gatherings when you go around. So you don't have to bring scale through the internet. It's probably just the simplest way. But if you're a musician and you tour, And all the time, like you do concerts, you pack the house, and the venue owner loves you. You're like, this is great. Of course, it's different from like religious music, but if you're just like, you know, you have a venue that people like and people enjoy, and at the end, after you have everyone's attention, everyone's really liking it. It's like, yeah, we have CDs for sale and some T-shirts if you want to support the band and if you want to listen to this at home. It's also on Spotify, but some people like CDs. Some people like CDs. That's what we got, right? So you can do it new school, which is the internet, old school, which is rallies, traveling, and just like calling people. There's different ways, but you got to take the idea of something converting, because when you don't ask, you're going to convert at a lower percentage, right? You can, like, asking like 10x's it, right? Because think about it, like, if it's like someone that you know and you like, if they have something cool, it's probably much more likely for you to buy it if they mention it. Like, oh yeah, I have this new tea brand, rather than you seeking out the tea brand and finding it. So it's gonna be lower conversion, but that can work with scale. I really hope this video can help. I went a little bit longer than I thought I would, but a lot of it is just free form, and this is how I would talk to a friend who is starting a business and ask me that question. I would just like sit down, have some tea with me, and I rant about it for 30 minutes, and I hope it can help them. I really hope it can help them. Please let me know how else I can help. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, my friend.